You guys ready? One more hand for Matt Franco, guys.
Hello.
So excited to have you here, man. It's going to be a great conversation, and we're excited for a little magic. I hear there might be some of that too, so stay tuned, guys. I feel like the standard question here is magic. You know, what got you into it? As a, how early did you start? Was it as a kid? Was it later in life?
4 years old, I saw magic on TV for the first time, and just was hooked. Stuck with it. The next thing you know, I'm bringing in magic for show and tell in kindergarten. And that was it. I was hooked from that day in, and it's all I ever wanted to do since then, so stuck with it.
That's amazing. And what was like the first trick that you learned?
I had 3.
Okay, nice.
I had vanished a ball, a red ball. I had a magic wand, and then I made it shrink. I did these in kindergarten. And then the last one was with thimbles. There was probably no trick, but I was in kindergarten. So I thought that it was amazing. I was trying to make them change color, but it probably wasn't very good.
You know, I feel like it's one of those things when you're a kid where there's a point where the parents are always like, oh, good job, congratulations with the trick. And then at what point do you start realizing that you're actually good at this? Or at what point did you realize you could actually trick people?
It was always kind of it came easily to me. It was a knack for me. I've had obviously other hobbies, other interests, music, for example. But I'm just not gifted in that way. You get it, you can kind of learn a little bit of this or that, but with magic, it just came a little more naturally with some practice, and it was what I had the most fun doing. So for me, it was very early on. I mean, the first time I performed in Vegas, I was a teenager. Wow. So, for me, it was very early on, just stuck with it.
Yeah, when you performed in Vegas, was that the first inkling you had that this is going to be a career for me? This is something I can do for the rest of my life?
I always thought it was going to be a career before I knew what a career was. I didn't know you had to actually, make money and, pay bills and all of that. To me, it was just like, I like magic, I'm going to do that. And then as I got a little bit older, high school, I started realizing, people need jobs, right? So I guess I went to school for business in college and marketing to support my magic habit. That was my plan at the time, was I was going to study business so that I could run my own business as a magician.
Wow,
yeah,
amazing. And then obviously people know you from America's Got Talent. You won that season. That's a pretty incredible achievement. That's so many people try out for that. Yeah, exactly. A round of hand for that. A lot of people try out for that show. So what got you inspired to put in a demo? What got you inspired to join that show?
I had no intention of ever winning. I didn't think that was a possibility. For me, I was hoping to get some good footage of me doing magic for, essentially my demo reel, right? So that's what I was hoping to get. I thought maybe if I can just get a 5-second clip or a 10-second clip, and then the next thing you know, you get voted to the next round. And then it happens again, and then, it's like this feeding frenzy. The more you get voted through, the more you get addicted and want to keep advancing. So somewhere along the line, it became not about getting footage anymore, and it became about actually trying to win.
When you're trying to prepare a trick for some pretty intimidating guys, like Howard, king of all media, Howard Stern, these guys, you're trying to impress them. So, when are you putting the tricks together? Are you giving weeks in advance that you're planning out this stuff? Or what trick were you most proud of in that situation?
Ooh, what was I most proud of? And how do you put them together? Yeah, on these competition shows, like America's Got Talent, it's live. It's live to live. So people watching it at home, 12 million people, are seeing it live, just like the audience at Radio City Music Hall is. So it's incredibly nerve-wracking, because just like here, anything can happen. It's because it's live. And you only have about a week, usually, to plan what you're going to do, because you do your performance, and then let's say you get voted through, it's like, okay, celebrate, but at 8 o'clock the next morning, you have to start figuring out what you're going to do 6 days from now, and you have to outdo yourself from what you did the previous week. So that's the challenging part. I guess the most memorable bit that people always mention to me that I did on that show was I borrowed Mel B's cell phone, and I accidentally dropped it in her drink. so it was damaged, and then I vanished it.
I'm sure she didn't care about that at all.
She didn't take it well.
Let that go, yeah.
But it did end well because I made it reappear. I cut open a seat in the middle of Radio City Music Hall, and that's where she found her phone. But that, I guess, was the most memorable bit from the show.
You know, were any of those judges, like, who was the serious magic skeptic? Who did you have to convince the most?
Heidi. Heidi Klum unquestionably watches magic most closely. But all four of them, during my time on the show, were always really supportive and said very, very nice things. So I was very thankful for that. It was never negative criticism, but always encouragement, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and you're starting to get, you know, feedback from people you've never heard, the amount of people you never heard from before. I mean, you're getting people tweeting you, I'm sure, and calling and sending emails. I mean, I'm sure you inspired some kids to start magic even. So what was it like to get that sort of reception?
That is the craziest thing, because we just talked about this. I'm 4 years old, right, watching magic on TV. Now here we are, I'm 28, and it's literally full circle. You know, after the show in Vegas, I'll meet families, everything. We get everything from older people, kids, bachelor parties. I mean, we see the full spectrum because magic has that appeal. And, you know, whenever we have a family or a kid that comes up and says, you know, I started doing magic because I saw you on TV, it, like, blows my mind. Yeah. But it's a really cool feeling, and I think that's part of what really makes it worth it. I mean, I would do it anyway, even if nobody watched, just because it's my addiction. But that sort of feedback really takes it to another level.
And when there's a kid that's like just starting out, is there a go-to trick you tell them to learn? Is there something that you tell them to sort of get their head around, or is it their own call, really?
I think it's just try to learn as much as you can, and experience is the best teacher. So for anyone out there wanting to learn magic or in the process of learning magic now, perform as much as you can for as many different types of audiences as you can. That's the advice that I sort of heard that rings true, that I heard when I was young. And I think that's the most important thing. You just get comfortable in front of different audiences, and you really get used to how to perform.
Now, after you won the show, I heard you got a couple interesting calls, a couple interesting congratulations. Tell us a little bit about that.
Such as?
As Neil Patrick Harris,
oh.
I think, from How I Met Your Mother. Might have give you a little ring.
I know who he is, yeah. Yeah, well, Neil Patrick Harris is a big fan of magic. Yeah. And I guess he had seen some of my stuff on the show on AGT, and he does magic himself. So when, I heard from him separately, but when I was putting together a special for magic for TV, and I was collaborating with various different people for the show, you know, he was high up on my list of people I wanted to not perform a trick for, but collaborate with. I thought that was an interesting thing. Rather, you know, and we have, you know, Heidi Klum on, and I do a trick for Heidi, which is fun. Right. But to be able to collaborate with someone who, it's two magicians working together, I thought that was an interesting concept. Yeah. So I did that with Neil, and also with Penn and Teller on the same special. But with Neil, we did this fun thing right here in the streets of New York, where he and I sort of switched places. We had a random person in the streets that we would, you know, switch places, and then I appeared on a moving bus. It was crazy.
You guys should really check this out online. It is an amazing trick. Like, you put your hand on their shoulder, and they're looking somewhere, and then all of a sudden Neil Patrick Harris has got his hand on their shoulder, and like, what the heck? It's crazy. People,
yeah, and the home viewer is in on how we do half the trick. Right. They see how Neil and I switch places,
right?
But they don't see how I transport onto the bus. So it's a really cool trick.
I mean, you know, when you're a magician, that reaction must be what you're going for every time. I mean, what does it feel like to have people, what's like the craziest reaction you've had from a trick?
You get everything from people just stunned into silence, people running out of the room. I mean, you see the full spectrum of things. In Vegas, you never know what you're going to get, and I love seeing different reactions every night. Every reaction is a good reaction. You know, it's just funny to see how people react, even if it's a non-reaction, even if it's just this, just kind of like...
the devil's in you or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but my goal isn't to freak people out. I'm in the business of helping people forget their problems for 90 minutes, you know? I'm in the business of making people happy. They forget about the deadline at the office or the emails that they have to follow up on. I just want people to have a good time, laugh, and have fun.
Well, I have a couple of friends who are magicians as well, and I know that it's a really hard time for you guys because people are complete skeptics, and they have their phones on them all the time. They want to look stuff up on the internet. How do you do this? How do you do that? What's it like to be a magician operating at this time? Do you play into that? Is that something that you sort of use again, to your advantage?
The way I look at it is, it's really about making the audience not have their analytical mind on. So when I have people watching the show, I want them to watch it the same way you would watch a movie. When you watch a movie, you all know how to do that. You just sit back, you relax, you enjoy the movie. Most of you don't overanalyze the special effects and try to figure out how they're done. You know the movie is fake, you know it's fictional, but you love it anyway. Now with magic, it's not like that, and I think it should be. So that's why I try to, wrap the magic in a story, give it kind of a theatrical arc in the show to kind of captivate people instead of just letting them sit there with their arms folded, getting pissed off.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's also for you on the other, the other end of that, you're probably like, who can I watch? Like the Houdinis. Who have you studied yourself as far as your favorite magicians and tricks that you tried to learn from those guys?
Yeah, I grew up with pictures of Houdini on my wall. Many magicians that the general public that hasn't necessarily heard of, but that are either great thinkers, philosophers, creators in magic that I've looked up to. But I think a lot of the influence that I've had comes from just general pop culture, things outside of magic. I think that's the key, because we all still think, when you think of magic, you think of a top hat still, many times, and a bunny and tails, right? Don't look at me like I'm crazy. That's what you all think of. Exactly. Do I look like the stereotypical magician,
The
though?
wand and everything like that? Yeah.
That's not what I look like, and I don't think I should look like that. So a lot of the influence that I had growing up was coming from not watching, a ton of influence from watching the old magic shows that were on in the 80s, 90s, all of that. But also in the current times of watching the MTV Music Awards and things that were happening around me as a teenager were the things that influenced me to try to take magic to the modern times. That was the key, and what I really wanted to be able to do is kind of make it fun and cool again and not old. That was really the goal, is to try to push it forward as much as possible.
Yeah. I mean, when you're creating a new trick that maybe has to do with something with pop culture, I mean, what's the process like for you? Do you have a couple of confidants that you sort of pass it around to, or I can't imagine you want to do it in front of 100,000 people, right away. So what's that process like?
I think the best advice, yes, I do have confidants that do magic or are very familiar with magic that can be very, very helpful in creating new magic. But the best advice I tend to get is from lay people, because that's whom my audience is. That's who I'm playing to. That's who I want to enjoy themselves. So whenever I meet people after the show and I ask them what they like or didn't like or whatever, I always listen very closely. The audience is my boss at the end of the day. So I want to know what they enjoyed, what they didn't enjoy, or whatever. I want to know what moved them the most. And sometimes they just say crazy stuff. They don't think in the confines like a magician does. They might say, well, why don't you just, come down from the ceiling and make that happen? And I'm like, oh, I never thought of that, because thinking like a magician, I would have never done that. But they think differently sometimes because they're watching it from a totally different perspective. When you do something over and over and you have to get away from it and then come back to it, they're able to do that instantly because they're not wrapped into it in the way that we are. But the key is finding a theme, something that's special about it. You find a theme and then you kind of wrap that around the trick or illusion.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of guys out there who like to push the boundaries as far as like death-defying, that sort of thing. So, I mean, as far as you when you're creating a stunt, I mean, how much risk do you want to have out there? Are you sort of like, it's not really worth sort of like risking my life to get a stunt done, or is it like I'm just about the enjoyment?
I want zero risk.
Yeah.
No, I'm not a daredevil. I'm not a thrill seeker. Being in this chair that's like raised up off the ground more than a normal chair,
now, right?
It's enough risk for me. It doesn't need to be a dangerous situation to keep people captivated. For me, it's more about having fun. I don't even want them to think there's risk. I don't even want perceived risk. I just want a good time. When you go see your favorite comedian, there's relatively no risk, right? So I feel like it should be okay for people to come to the Matt Franco show and be okay with there being no risk. If you want to see me get hurt, that's a whole different audience, I think.
Exactly. I mean, talking about the show, let's talk about the show.
Sure.
I mean, Las Vegas, that's a huge market. So, I mean, what's it like to create a show for Vegas? What were your sort of intentions when you were creating that show?
Vegas it's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so cool. Well, you never know what you're gonna get. So, you know, I bring a lot of people on stage during the show, and you never know what you're gonna get. So if I say, hey, what's your name? If you're hammered drunk, you can still say your name. So I don't have much of a test to see, hey, what's your name? Great, come on up here. And then you find out that they're barefoot, not wearing shoes, stumbling around, or maybe they don't speak English. Right. Because in Vegas, we have a big international audience. So we have all different kinds of things that happen every single night. People always say to me, do you get sick of doing your show? So far from that. I look forward to it every single time because the audience makes it so different. You know, they really guide the show. I know I have a map. I know I'm here and I want to get over here, but they decide what routes we're going to take to get there, and that's what keeps it fresh for me. But oh man, it's so cool to have a show in Vegas. It's like a dream come true, truly.
I mean, what's it like to have, you know, to get that show and then have to maybe go around? Were you testing much of the market? Were you testing what else was out there as far as shows? And, you know, what was it like going through that process?
Yeah, after winning America's Got Talent, I mean, any door that's going to be open is open right there. And you really want to capture it in the best way possible. And to me, I never thought about going to Las Vegas to have my own show because I didn't think that was going to be a viable option for me. I'm just a schmuck kid magician from Rhode Island. What am I going to do out in Vegas? I didn't think that I could do that. Then the offer came in. And I thought, well, might as well be open-minded to everything that comes in. Let's give it a try. And man, I just enjoy it so much more than I realized I would. You know, I come from a background of traveling, doing shows, where you're traveling 12 hours a day to get to the gig. I used to perform at colleges. That was like my main squeeze, you know? And there can be some real soul-crushing gigs on the road playing colleges. One day you'll walk in and it'll be a beautiful theater. The next day, it'll be a 12-inch riser in the middle of the dining hall, right, at a commuter campus at their lunch hour. So they're forced to be there to eat lunch, and they have no idea that you're about to do 60 minutes of magic. There they are sitting at a table trying to study or do a group project. Or
you're out there stealing sandwiches, and yeah.
And now you have to stand up here and start entertaining them like, hey, everybody, I'm Matt Franco, and I'm about to do a magic show. Nobody wants to see that. So those gigs can be pretty soul-crushing. And when you do a couple hundred of those a year for, you know, 4 or 5 years, it makes having your own theater in Vegas feel like a really cushy job.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, obviously we're going to see a little bit of magic, you know, coming up here, but, you know, tell us a little bit about, you know, your favorite trick or your favorite stunt that's going on in the show right now, something that gets you really excited.
Oh, wow, my favorite.
That's a pretty hard question, I know.
No, it's a great question. You know, I've made it, I guess, accidentally made it a signature of mine to take borrowed items from people and make them vanish and appear somewhere really impossible, like a cell phone appearing in a seat cushion. You know, for football fans, I did a very similar routine with Gronk from the Patriots, you know, Rob Gronkowski, where I borrowed his phone, vanished it, and made it appear inside of a football. I love cutting things open.
I mean, what is someone like Gronk, how does he react? Are you afraid of him?
A little
big
bit.
Dude, yeah.
Yeah, he's built like a tank a little bit. You don't know how he's going to react when you vanish his cell phone, you know? But his reaction is priceless. But, you know, people see that stuff on TV. And even though, like, America's Got Talent is live, you're watching it at home thinking that's too impossible. That's got to be a camera trick. There's just no way. So the cool thing is, when you come to the show in Las Vegas, you get to see a version of that same trick with a new twist. But it's very similar, but it's got a twist to make it unique for the Vegas show. And then you see it with your own eyes in person. That's pretty cool, because you're watching it and you're saying, oh, well, why did they cut the camera there? This must be a camera trick. And we don't use camera tricks, right? But you don't know that when you're watching at home. Like you said, everyone's skeptical. right? So I think that it's cool that you get to see some of those like favorites actually live in person for yourself, and you realize, oh man, like you really can do that live. It's like when you listen to a musician, a great singer, and you wonder, wow, I wonder if they can hit those notes live. You know, I see it the same way in magic. Yeah.
I mean, when you're talking about having a show in Vegas, you know, you've been on America's Got Talent. The holidays are coming up. I'm sure Christmas comes up. The family's like, do a trick. And now, do they ever get drunk and be like, come on, tell us how you do it? You know, how much you have to drink to tell somebody how to do a trick?
I would imagine it would have to be a lot. Yeah. I mean, it's just, the whole how it's done is always more interesting to other people than to me. You know, people are always interested to ask that. And I guess I just never take the question seriously. I just kind of shrug and say, who knows? Yeah. But even my own family does ask, you know, they'll be say, you know, Matt, we've been watching you do this stuff for 20 years, and, you know, we understand magic a little bit, but that thing you did with the thing there, come on, how did you do that? Don't worry about it.
Well, we have a couple questions in the audience. Don't ask how tricks are done. So there we go. There we go.
Hey, Matt, thank you for being here. Do you consider yourself a role model to aspiring magicians?
Wow. You know, I guess I hope to be. I hope to inspire young magicians to follow their passion, because I think that magic is a great thing to get into, whether it's something you want to do professionally or even just a hobby. Magic is an awesome community. It can help, like, as a kid growing up, it can help build self-confidence, and it can teach anyone, adults. It can teach you how to, like, public speak. It's just a great field to get into, whether it's for a hobby or professionally. So to inspire people to do it, yeah, that is pretty awesome. And I can only hope that, you know, that I share magic in the best way when they do see it.
Great question. Yeah, right there.
Hey, Matt. So when you were studying business, did you know that you were still going to get into magic, and did you have to like make time for it while you were studying, or did you like still do it as a hobby?
Yeah, great question. So that was, you know, you're referring to college, of course. Yeah, the plan was to hopefully use that business knowledge, because I had none prior to college. I had no business know-how at all. My only way of advertising was a business card. I didn't have a website, you know? So I studied business really in hopes of being able to use that to support the magic obsession, really was the goal. And I guess somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought, well, maybe it could be a backup plan if needed.
That's great. Yeah, last question right there.
Hey, Matt, when you think of magic, especially in this day, this era, it's not too many. Like, when you think of athletes, you can name a lot. When you think of singers, you think a lot. When you think of actors, you can name a lot. Do you think that being so few people that does magic, do you think it's a great thing, or do you think it's a bad thing?
Wow, I don't know if it's great or bad. I think it is what it is, but it's definitely a good point you bring up, because it's so true. I mean, you can ask someone to name a magician, and like, there's a pretty high percentage they're gonna say Houdini, and he died in 1926, right? So yeah, so it's interesting that there are very few names in it. I guess it's just because it's a niche. Now, does that make it a bad thing? I'm not sure. Does it make magic grow slower? Is that the reason magic tends to be behind the times? It can be. Maybe. Maybe it is. Maybe. And I think magic is growing. We're seeing more of it on television. I think it's on the up. You know, it comes and goes in waves. But for some reason, I don't know what the reason is. You just see less of those known names in magic. I guess, in my case, maybe it's a good thing, you know. But I'm really not sure for magic if it's a good thing, because I think people are starting to learn that there are different genres of magic, and I think that's a great thing. You know, you mentioned David Blaine, who I think was just here, right? He just did one of these sessions. In fact, he was just at my show at the LINQ. He just came to the show. In Vegas, which is very, very kind of him. Obviously, he's carved out his own niche. In fact, he's a pioneer. I mean, he invented what we now know as street magic, and that's one genre. And then you've got, you know, a guy who does strictly mind reading, for example. And then you've got you know, the genre that I've cultivated, you know, kind of this interactive, more boy next door than creepy, freak you out type magic, right? So I like that audiences are realizing there are different genres. Sorry to go off on a huge rant on your question here.
Totally welcome. Yeah.
But I do think it's awesome that people are starting to see different genres of magic rising. So the more names that become popular, the more we'll see of that, the better magic becomes, ultimately, I think. So I think the more names we have popping up, the better.
Nice. Well, we're going to see a little bit of your genre of magic right now, I understand. And people should see the full show at the LINQ in Las Vegas. That's where your show's put up, right? That's correct.
Sure is,
so here we go. I guess
cool, let's do it.
What do you got in store for us here?
Let's see. We'll use your mic if that's cool.
I'm going to use my mic. Okay.
All right. Please, yeah, step back just a little bit. Perfect. All right. We'll try something here. I'm going to use the cards. You play cards at all?
I play a little poker here.
A little poker. Cool, cool. You any good? Terrible?
Lose all my quarters.
We'll try a little something here for you, Charles. I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to have you slide out one card, okay? Anyone you want. Don't let me force you. Free choice for you, okay? Anyone.
Okay. Nice try. Nice try.
I'm just messing with you. I'm sorry. It's a sickness. It's okay if I see the card. Just touch one that has lots of room to put your name on it. 7 of diamonds? Great choice. You righty?
I am, yes.
Okay, cool. Pop this in your right hand. Excellent. So I'll hold the deck for you so you can just go ahead and sign. Huge letters. What's your middle initial? You have a middle name?
Yeah, Newton.
Okay, so C-N? C-N-T? Okay. Nice and big. Try to make it huge letters. Take up the whole card. Yep. Cool. One letter off from country music television. All right.
Exactly.
All right. We're going to show you the quickest way you can cap the pen. I'm going to show you guys the quickest way to lose his card in the deck. So you get it nice and tight on here so you can see this. And we're just going to lose it in, right? Put it in about maybe like, I don't know, halfway. And could you push it in? You can actually do it there. Push it in. When you do that, it really is gone from the top. Obviously, that's not it. But if I just wave my hand over the deck, it actually comes back. Now, hold on. You didn't know what to look for. That's not fair, so we'll do it again. But this time, you will make the magic happen. Okay. Go ahead. Lift up half the deck for me. Try to get about half. Very good. Yeah, put yours in. Put that on top. Now wave your hand over it. Good. Try to make it a little more magical. Yeah.
Is that it? Come on, man. Come on.
Now look, I'm glad you guys like that. Sometimes people don't, all right? Sometimes we have like, yes.
People like magic.
That's right. You just hit the nail on the head. Sometimes we do have skeptics. Skeptics who say it's not really in the middle. So look, this time I'll leave the card. CNT, that looks really bad, by the way. Just hit me. No, it's just, I won't go into what I'm thinking. I'm going to leave the card sticking out there so you can actually see. Don't try to pronounce it, is what I'm telling you, okay? I want you to go ahead and push your card into the fan so I can't even get to it, Charles. Just all the way, yeah, on this side. So all the way, so I can't even touch it. Yeah.
All the way in there.
Now you wave your hand over it. Yeah, now you turn it over. You show it to the crowd. Your card.
This card.
Yeah, all the way up. Your card, all the way up. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey!
When that happened? I want that video. I want that video.
I love that delayed reaction. That was good. Don't worry, everybody does.
Just listen to the rules, man. Just listen to the rules.
We'll tell you what.
Oh, there's more. Come on.
We'll take it a step further, okay? Look, with this time, you can actually see when it goes in, but we can actually take this a step further. Instead of putting your card in the middle, we can actually shuffle it into the deck. That way I can't use sleight of hand to find it, but we can take it a step further and use what I call sleight of tongue. Now, are you at all familiar with sleight of tongue? That's not at all? All right, I'll show you what it looks like. Watch.
Paul?
Yes, I can hear you.
Your car has been shuffling to the middle of the deck, am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. It's not on the top. It's not the top card.
It's not the top card.
Bottom.
It's not the bottom either.
No, like I just closed it. It's shuffling to the middle of the deck. Are you guys even listening to me?
I can't understand a word he's saying.
Right here, watch.
What? No. That's a great move. Oh, that's not it. Sorry, dude. Sorry, dude. Oh. Come on. Son of a cat. Oh, jeez. That's a pretzel. Oh, jeez.
One really wet one, folded neatly, not once, but twice. Is that your card with your name on it? It is! And a nice souvenir for you. Woo! And he took it. What a good sport right here.
One more hand for Matt Franco, guys. Come on now. That was
Thank you,
amazing.
guys. You guys are the best. Thank you.